Hey guys, my name is JAde and welcome to Dallas Jamming. If this is your first time on this channel is about music production, the artistic process of music creation, and maximizing your potential by introducing different ways of making music to you. So if you've somehow landed on this channel, you're probably in a point in your musical career. Yes, I call it musical career, even if you're a bedroom producer, this is what we do, we're music makers. You're probably in a spot where you feel uninspired, frustrated, you've been making music on a computer for so long that you've lost touch with the way you used to make music. So if I could put my money on how a normal music session is going for you, I'm gonna assume it's the same way that it used to be for me a couple years ago. You get that feeling that you want to make music, so you turn on your DAW, you wait for it to load up, you plug up your MIDI controller, for some reason it's not recognizable even though you've plugged it in a million times, your interface, it's not recognizable either, whatever, you go to the preferences, set it up again, a few minutes have passed already, and now you're looking at a blank project. Now you gotta figure out how many tracks you're gonna need. Alright, so you need leads, you need bass, you need your pads, you need some drums, so you make 4 tracks. You open up the first track, you scroll through your sounds, 5 minutes later, okay, this one sounds good. You start playing a melody, that sounds good too. You rush to make a loop. Onto the next instrument, same process, you go, you open the track, you click the VSTs, etc, etc, etc. And for some reason, it just doesn't feel the same way that it used to when you started making music. So what has happened? Why is this happening? This is because you're stuck in a routine where you've confused the creative process of music creation with the arranging that occurs during composition, which is where you structure your tracks to create a finished song. Alright, so now we've identified the problem. What do we do now? We have a couple options. First, I want you to take a deep breath. You're not alone in this world. There's a lot of people that feel like you. A lot of us have started in the DAW and stayed in the DAW for a while and even stopped making music completely. I stopped for 3 years and it was just terrible. So what are our options? A. Give up on making music. Obviously, we're not gonna do that. Our soul would wither up and die. We're musicians, we need to create. Let's just throw that option out the window. Number 2, you're gonna get yourself a MIDI controller. So the thing with Logic and GarageBand is that they don't have like an actual MIDI controller for that software, unlike Ableton that has the Pushto. So if you're using GarageBand or Logic, it's gonna be harder for you to come up with ideas using a MIDI controller. If you're using Ableton and you're hardcore into Ableton and you just want a way to not look at the computer as much when you're making music, definitely consider the Pushto. They are around $700. I mean, if you're gonna drop that much money, think about other options, but this is one option. If this is still not working for you, if you still don't feel like it's an actual instrument, because it's not, it's just a controller, you're probably gonna go on to option 3, which is you're gonna jump in headfirst into DAW-less music production, which is a big mistake. I did it, it took me a lot of time to figure out my workflow, I bought a lot of gear, sold a lot of gear, and that's probably what's gonna happen to the average user because you're gonna be introduced to so much new gear, you're not gonna know what you need, you're gonna lust after every single synthesizer, after every type of sound, and you're gonna end up in the same position you were with a bunch of gear and not making any music. So the fourth option is to ask yourself, what is it about the DAW that has killed your creativity? And the answer to that is not having a real physical instrument. The DAW is a great tool, but it's not a real instrument. You're gonna want that physical feel that an instrument gives you, and you're not gonna get that with a DAW. So you wanna get away from the computer, but you don't have a lot of money to spend in a DAW setup. What are your next options? You need to ask yourself a very important question. If you had to choose only one for the sake of it, would you consider yourself a keyboard player or a beat maker? I myself am a keyboard player. I'll be happy enough with just a backing track and I'll play keys for hours. Obviously, we're all producers, we're skilled with making tracks with a lot of instruments, but my main thing, my forte, is keyboard. So you need to figure out what your forte is. Are you a keyboardist? Is piano your main thing? Are you okay with making beats on a keyboard with the keys? Or are you a beat maker and you use a lot of samples for melodies and you enjoy programming and chopping samples and stuff like that? So once you've answered that question, if you're a keyboard player, go and get yourself a synthesizer. I just made a video about the best synthesizers under $300, definitely check that out. I also have a video about groove boxes, definitely check that out if you're a beat maker. So once you have a physical instrument, what does this do for you? This frees you up from being dependent on the DAW for sound, so you no longer need a DAW to make music. So if you allow yourself to concentrate on one thing, your brain is going to be more focused on that certain thing. There's a lot of research about multitasking. We think that we're good at multitasking, that humans are meant to multitask, but we're not. When we have more than one thing that we need to focus on, for example, being creative, coming up with an idea, creating a track, mixing it, doing all that at the same time, you're taking away from the creative process. So once you separate those two things, once you have an instrument that you can just sit down and jam on, you're going to feel like you have control of your music again. You also realize that not every jam has to be a finished song. Just like when you play guitar, you just sit down, play your guitar. You're gonna sit down with your keyboard, with your groove box, and you're just gonna make a beat, play the keys, and you're gonna enjoy it. Not every jam has to be a finished song. You can just jam for the sake of jamming. So now you can take part in jamming DAWlessly, or how I like to call it, DAWless jamming, which is just that, getting away from the computer for the sake of creativity. Does this mean that I'm anti-DAW, that I don't use the DAW at all? No. Like I said, I think the DAW is a great tool, but it is not an instrument. And once you learn to separate the two, you can take advantage of what the DAW has to offer. Because the DAW is a great audio mangler, a great arranger, and once you realize the difference between those two things, you will get back to making music before you know it, I promise you. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more content like this, and if you want to join the DAWless fam over on Patreon, I would really appreciate it. You guys get all my music, my sound packs, my synth art, and more content to come. I'll catch you guys later.